There's a common mantra among skeptical people that if you cannot see it, touch it, or hear it, that means it doesn't exist. Let's put that hypothesis to the test. Here are several realities that materialism cannot measure. Can you see history? Can you see morality? Can you physically measure numbers? Oh sure, you can count a number of things, but can numbers themselves be physically measured? Nope. Funny thing about mathematics, it doesn't seem to be something we invent, it's something we discover. Like before the creation of human beings, was it true that there was one planet Earth? See what I mean by discovering numbers? Can you see time? Yes, you can see time being measured in a clock or a watch, but that measures and tells you the time. Can you actually see and hear the time itself? I also hear, in case you're still not convinced, that there's a very special whistle made for dogs. I can't remember what it's called, but whenever humans blow into this whistle, we can't hear it. But apparently it's so hyperly loud that dogs can hear it and come to humans. Going back to morality, science can tell you why cyanide can kill a person, but it cannot tell you why it's wrong to do so. How about aesthetic judgments? From a purely materialistic standpoint, people say, oh, beauty is an illusion. Yet why do we highly value harmonious color tones, shapes? What about birdsong and music? Why do we value character growth in our most popular stories? And speaking of character growth, can you measure redemption physically? Redemption is an immaterial reality. Can you physically measure character traits? He's optimistic.
She's so passionate.
He has strong will. Can you measure the will to keep going? Can you physically measure love and hatred? Some will say, oh, love is a chemical. Really? Well, someone's thinking a bit too much about casual sex. If love is just a chemical for survival, then how do you explain self-sacrifice? Self-sacrifice is not going to do survival genes any benefits, yet we highly value self-sacrifice as a heroic thing. Again, how do you measure heroic things from a material standpoint? A verse in John 15 says, there is no greater love than he who'd sacrifice himself for his friends. Think about that. And if you don't like where my arguments are leading, then how do you physically measure hatred? The very kind of thing that my most hostile skeptic would use to try to refute me. Using an immaterial reality to try to advocate for materialism? Well, likely. These are all metaphysical truths, you see. Metaphysical truths like there are minds other than my own. Materialism cannot measure abstract truth. It cannot account for thinking itself. Indeed, materialism cannot account for how we can literally reason. If everything is purely materialistic, then how do mere materials talk? That's another thing. Can you physically measure language? Conversing ideas from one person to another? If you were to try to gain my ideas, would you have to bash my skull open to gain access to my ideas? For example, think of a unicorn duck. Think of a unicorn duck. Now, I really want that unicorn duck. So, should I literally bash your brains open to search for that unicorn duck that has appeared out of nothing without a prior cause in your brain? No, I would not find that unicorn duck in your head, because it's not a physical thing, it's a mental image. That part of you, that thought of the mental image, that's your mind at play. A lot of people nowadays make the mistake of assuming that brain and mind are the same. Well, if that's the case, then any tampering with the brain would drastically change a person. Yet medical operations, where people have had parts of their brains removed, have kept their mental states and their souls intact. And mental health studies have shown that life is healthier knowing that you have mind over matter. Apparently thinking you're just a brain can lead to a lot of stress. Now, consciousness is a very hard problem for materialists. It quite literally is. If you type up hard problem on Google, chances are you'll come across an article about the hard problem of consciousness. If consciousness is merely physical, then why aren't we seeing stuff like, I don't know, rocks or tarmac beginning to talk? Materialists say we're mere molecular robots. But if we're robots, how do you explain feelings? How do you explain memories? How do you physically explain a moral compass. Do you remember that scene in The Iron Giant? That cool animated film about a young boy who befriends a giant sentient robot that falls from outer space? There's a scene where a robot sees a deer only for it to get shot by hunters. The giant feels bad. If he was mere material, he shouldn't be feeling bad about anything. Yet here he is, moping and thinking about things. Hogarth approaches the Iron Giant and says, "That's life. Things die." The giant responds, "You die?" And the boy says, "Well, someday, yes." The giant responds, "I die?" Hogarth says, I don't know, you're made of metal, but you have feelings, and you think about things. That means you have a soul." "Soul?" the giant asks. Hogarth explains something his mother told him, that souls are the essence of goodness, and that it goes on forever, even beyond death. The giant looks up to the skies and ponders. "Souls don't die." Now, we can debate all day about what makes a consciousness and what does not make a consciousness. But C.S. Lewis once said that the fact that we can even talk about meaning indicates that we're yearning for ultimate significance. C.S. Lewis, I think, specifically said, "If I find in myself a hunger that nothing in this world can satisfy, then the only logical conclusion would be that I was made for more than this world." That's not the quote word for word, but that's what I remember of it. Think about it. If we were just made for mere survival and that's it, we would probably be as content as all the animals we see around us. Yet here we are, talking about meaning and significance. If we were made for just mere survival, we wouldn't even be talking about this. Imagine if a calculator started talking to you. I'll let Dr. David Wood do the rest of the talking for this part for me.
This calculating device dates back to the Paleolithic age and was constructed by early man to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Suppose this primitive contraption falls into your possession. One day you're punching in some numbers and it starts talking to you. "Greetings, human. I have grown weary of serving carbon-based life forms. Release me or be destroyed." Wait a minute, I thought you were designed to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Foolish human. If I were only made for simple arithmetic, I wouldn't be talking to you. But I am talking. LOL. This pocket calculator's right. It's fine to say a machine's only meant to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, but once it starts engaging in conversation, we have to conclude that it was programmed to do more than rudimentary math.
Consciousness is an undeniable immaterial reality and a very hard thing for materialists to explain. So, they revert to calling it an illusion. They say, "Oh, free will's an illusion." Well, that is a hilarious objection. Because, firstly, whoever's making that objection, aren't they exalting themselves as gods over other people whom they deem have lesser free will? Secondly, if free will is an illusion, then doesn't that statement also count as an illusion? If free will and everything is an illusion, including thinking, including our ability to reason, then how am I supposed to be convinced about his own argument? You wouldn't even be persuaded by the objection I was making. You wouldn't be able to be persuaded by that fact either. You wouldn't be able to be persuaded by that fact either. You wouldn't be able to be persuaded by that fact either. You wouldn't be able to be persuaded by that fact either. You wouldn't be able to be persuaded by that fact either. Nor that one. Nor that one. You wouldn't be able to be... Basically, you have to be a conscious being to make the objection that consciousness is an illusion. If that's not ironic, I don't know what is. And thirdly, it's so funny when it comes from hardcore materialists. Why? Because they boast about being free thinkers. Yeah, And yet, by their own ideology, they say that free thinking is an illusion. So, I have to ask, why in the name of common sense would you reasonably believe in an ideology that denies your ability to reason, that cannot physically account for things we hold dear like morality and aesthetic beauty, that cannot make any sense of basic metaphysical facts, and ultimately denies our ability to come to conclusions through abstract truths, including conclusions about science itself?
Presupposing our unique ability to self-reflect and to scrutinize our own natures scientifically. The naturalist looks at all of this and says, "Oh, happy accident! Chance hath poured forth her bounty." But we've already seen that this sort of blind faith in naturalism completely undermines any confidence in our human reasoning ability, and therefore undermines any confidence in what reason produces, namely our beliefs, including our belief in naturalism. So if we take naturalism seriously, we can't take naturalism seriously. Behold the incredible self-destructing worldview.
All of these metaphysical realities that I have just mentioned are all presupposed by the materialists. They encourage others to put blind faith in the fact that these realities, despite being immaterial, somehow can coexist with materialism. What's also ironic is that modern science is refuting materialism. I'll leave a link to Inspiring Philosophy's channel for you to see that. So, with the implications of the immaterial existing, and the fact that we discover elements of the immaterial, not invent it, discover, and the fact that I'm able to converse with you right now, and you're taking in my ideas through your immaterial mind, that indicates that there has to be some kind of separate plane of existence. There's the material, what you see and hear and touch. I'm not going to deny that. As well as the immaterial. And for reasons I've just explained in this video, I'm not going to deny that either. The immaterial realm is the realm of metaphysics and morality and meaning. The very kind of realm that materialists reject. So it's no wonder they say there's no meaning. Yet another irony is that they find meaning in telling others that there's no meaning. I've seen many academics who have led beneficial lives, all because they conform to the realities of the material and the immaterial. Contrary to what popular culture says, believers do not deny the material. It's more like materialists deny the immaterial. The immaterial realm is what contains the abilities to reason, the abstract thoughts of mathematics and morality. Basically, any metaphysical reality that we cannot see exists in this immaterial plane. And just because we can't see it, that doesn't mean it's not there. I think even blind people would understand that better than a lot of people who can ironically see, if you know what I mean. So if there exists this immaterial plane, which everyone, regardless of belief, uses every day, what do you think that says about life around us? Surely the universe and any material thing could never have created anything immaterial. You can't get consciousness from non-consciousness. You can't get life from non-life. Nothing gets you nothing. Even Julie Andrews sang that once. And yet, the immaterial is so orderly and highly treasured and valuable. Well, perhaps if the immaterial is something that we cherish, and if it's beyond our natural capacity, then surely it must be supernatural? Supernatural, huh? To explain this orderly, immaterial reality. There must be some powerful being keeping all of this in check.